Shalom guys, welcome back to another episode here at YASHAV Youth Ministries with the Casa de Israel. I thank you for being here again for another study and teaching of the Torah portions. Like I said before, my name is Alexander Hernandez and I'm one of the youth leaders. If you like the content that we have on our channel, please like, subscribe, and if you have any comments, questions, concerns, please put them on the comments section down below. Also, please share, especially to any young adult youth that is hungry to learn about the Word of God and in its context and its truth. Feel free to share, and to anybody else that it will be edifying as well. Also, our congregation is going to be streaming through Faith Life and the Faith Life app. You can find us there, and also on YouTube and on Facebook. I'll be putting up our social media locations on the screen. With that being said, let's get started with this week's Torah portion. So, this week's Torah portion is Vaetchanan, which means, and I pleaded. Right? And so, this week's Torah portion starts with Moses addressing the younger generation. And his starting point is his plead to enter the land, right? And so, like I said, this week's Torah portion is Etchanan, which means "and I pleaded." The Torah portion is Devarim, or Deuteronomy, chapter 3. From verse 21 through chapter 7, verse 11. The Haftarah reading, which is the prophets, is Isaiah chapter 40, verse 1 through 26. And the Brit Hadashah, which is the New Testament, it is Matthew chapter 23, verse 31 through 39, and Mark 12, verse 28 through 34. That is what we're going to be covering today. So, let's get started with this reading. And it says, "And I pleaded with Adonai," right? This is Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 23. And it says, "And I pleaded with Adonai at the time, saying, O Lord Adonai, you have begun to show your servant your greatness, your strong hand. For what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do the deeds and mighty acts like yours? Please, let me cross over to the sea, the good land across the Jordan, the good hill country and the Lebanon." But Adonai was angry with me because of you, so he will not listen to me. And Adonai said, "Enough! Do not speak to me any more about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah, look around to the west, to the north, south, and the east, and see with your eyes, for you will not cross over this Jordan. But commission Joshua, encourage him, strengthen him, for he will cross over before this people, and he will enable them to inherit the land that you will see." And so, we stayed in the valley opposite to Beth Peor. Chapter 4 says, "Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and ordinances that I am teaching you to do, so that you may live and go and possess the land that Adonai, the God of your fathers, is giving you. You must not add to the word I am commanding you, or take away from it, in order to keep the mitzvot of Adonai your God that I am commanding you. Your eyes have seen what Adonai did at Baal Peor, for Adonai your God has destroyed them, and destroyed from among you everyone who followed Baal Peor. But you held tight to Adonai your God, and are alive today, all of you. See, just as Adonai my God commanded me, I have taught you statutes and ordinances to do in the land that you are about to enter and possess. You must keep and do them, for it is your wisdom right? The commandments, the Torah is your wisdom, guys, and understanding in the eyes of the peoples. And they will say and will hear all these statutes and say, surely there is a great nation and is wise and understanding people. For what great nation is there that has a God so near to them as Adonai our God is whenever we call on him? So it's interesting because, like I've said before, in the ancient Near East, they had a belief in their deities, but they didn't understand them or didn't have a grasp of what their deities wanted in reality. And so here, Moses is telling his people that, listen, the first generation wasn't able to honor the Father the way he wanted to, right? So they disobeyed and they were stuck in their own ways. So I'm telling you, obey the commandments, follow the structure that the Father has implemented, because this is your wisdom. It's going to give testimony that you are the true people of God. They're going to see that you are a just nation, and they're going to see that there is a true God that is close to you, and he will be there for you when you ask for healing, right? For consolation, right? It's for a God that is close to you that will answer your prayers. And so, as long as you're doing and keeping the Torah, you are going to show that you have a God that is close to you. And it says, I lost myself. Sorry, guys. And it says, verse 8. So what great nation is there that has statutes and ordinances that are righteous, like all this Torah that I am setting before you today? Only be watchful. Listen, guys, be watchful and watch over your soul closely, so you do not forget the things your eyes have seen, right? And slip from your heart all the days of your life. You are to make them known to your children and your children's children, right? So we have a responsibility to teach our children. And for us, it's different because we didn't witness the miracles. But through Yeshua and our faith and our confession in his resurrection and his divine sponsorship by Elohim, then we are meant and called to teach our children and our children's children about the mighty hand of Elohim and how just and righteous he is. And it says, the day that you stood before Adonai your God in Horeb, Adonai said to me, gather the people to me, and I will make them hear my words, so that they learn to fear me all the days that they live on the earth, and so that they teach their children. And then you came near and stood on the bottom of the mountain, while the mountain was blazing with fire up to the heart of heaven's darkness, cloud and fog. Adonai spoke to you from the midst of the fire. The sound of the words you heard, but a form you did not see, only a voice. He declared to you his covenant, which he commanded you to do, the 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 tablets of stone. Adonai commanded me at the time to teach you statutes and ordinances, so that you might do them in the land you are crossing over to possess. So, be very watchful over your souls, since you saw no form on that day. Adonai spoke to you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, so that you do not act corruptly and make for yourselves a graven image in the likeness of any figure, the form of a male or a female, the form of any animal that is on the earth, the form of any winged bird that flies in the sky, the form of anything that creeps on the ground, and the form of any fish that is in the waters underneath the earth, so that you do not lift up your eyes towards the heavens and see the sun or the moon and the stars and all the heavenly hosts, and are drawn away and bow down and worship them. Now your God has allotted them to all the peoples under all the heavens, but you, Adonai, has taken, and he brought you out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be people for his own inheritance, as you are this day. So here we see that Adonai is trying to make Israel set apart themselves and be different from the nations around them, right? Egypt, the Hittites, the Canaanites, right? They create images of whatever's in the water, fishes, birds, the moon, the stars, right? And they worship these idols, and in their mind, these engraved images have this mystical power, but they don't understand that they have no power at all, right? And that the God of Israel has established himself as a true living God that has no image. He just has righteous acts and a just a structure of justice and of honor. And so that's what Elohim wants us to become. He wants us to become the image, right? Us, instead of worshiping idols, we honor and worship Elohim, and we become images of his kingdom, and we represent him correctly. And so that's what he's trying to establish here with Israel. And it says, furthermore, Adonai was angry with me because of your words. So here Moses is still frustrated, right? He's angry still that he's not going to be able to cross the land. He swore that I would not cross the Jordan or enter the good land that Adonai your God is giving you for an inheritance. For I must die in this land. I'm not crossing over the Jordan, but you will cross over and take possession of the good land. Watch yourselves, so that you do not forget the covenant of Adonai your God, which he cut with you and made for yourselves engraved images in the form of anything that Adonai your God has forbidden you. For Adonai your God is a consuming fire and a jealous God. When you father children and children's children and have been in the land a long time, you act corruptly and make a graven image in form of anything and do evil on the side of Adonai your God, provoking him to anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today, that you will certainly be carried off quickly from the land you are crossing over the Jordan to possess. You will not prolong your days on it, for you will certainly be destroyed. Adonai will scatter you among the peoples, and you will be left few in number among the nations where Adonai will drive you. There you will serve men, and men-made gods of woods and stone, which do not see or hear or eat or smell. But from the air you will seek Adonai your God, and you will find him when you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. So here Moses is trying to emphasize the importance of not getting carried away with materialistic things, right? And in the ancient Near East, wooden figures would sum up a nation's belief that wooden image was giving them everything, right? That wooden image was the sole provider for the people. And so here Adonai is trying to make an important distinction in saying, please do not make images because they are worthless. They are nothing. What is going to give you and maintain you is your faithfulness to me. Your obedience to me is what's going to maintain you and be fruitful to you, right? And when you come to look for me with all your mind and with all your soul, with all your heart. Don't come trying to gain something. Come trying to honor me and be faithful to me. And so it's very important because he says here that he calls heaven and earth as witnesses to them if they do this. And so it was interesting that I found, right, and I wrote down on some of my notes. It says that in the ancient Near East, in the ancient Near Eastern covenants, right, heaven and earth are called as witnesses along with gods and other parts of nature. So they will punish the violators, right? So they used to call heaven and earth as witnesses, and then if the people would break their covenant, then storm or drought or no rain will come, and that will be the punishment for their breaking of the covenant, right? And it says that since it's established that they can't violate the covenant, then we see that in chapters 28 of Deuteronomy, and in chapter 11, verse 7, it states that the following: He will shut up the heavens so that there will be no rain, and the earth will not yield his produce, and you will perish from the good land being given. So this is a contextual mindset in the ancient Near East. Now, yes, Moses calling heaven and earth as witnesses. Now, there's two distinct differences between the ancient Near Eastern communities and Israel in this regard, right? And the ancient Near East, they believed that heaven and earth were the supreme authority in the universe, right? Because they believed that the sun was a god, and the moon was a god, and the stars were a god, and then that there was animals that were gods, and so on and so forth, right? But here in the Torah, it's established that heaven and earth are controlled by Elohim, right? So heaven and earth are witnesses, are not the domain, they're not the power. The power, Elohim has it, right? Yod He Vav He, right? Adonai is the one that has the power, right, of heaven and earth. And they are witnesses on behalf of Adonai and on behalf of Moses that if Israel creates an engraved image, they have broken the covenant they have made with Adonai. And so it's interesting because it talks about very important points here. Now, this is the route of the Israelites from Kadesh Barnea to the steppes of Moab, right? So here it shows you the route that they took this whole time. But here it says, and he declared unto you his covenant, which he commanded you to perform. Even the 10 commandments, he wrote them upon 2 tablets of stone. Now, we're going to look a little bit on the tablets of stones, right? And so there's a lot to be said about the tablets of stone. It says that it has been commonly assumed that each of the stone tablets contained but a part of the total revelation proclaimed by the voice of Elohim out of the fiery manifestation at Sinai. Only the subordinate questions of the dividing point between the first and second tablets has occasioned disagreement. A re-examination of the biblical data, however, particularly in the light of extra-biblical parallels, suggests that a radically new interpretation of the formal nature of the 2 stones and the importance of which will be found to lie primarily in a fresh perspective. It lends to our understanding of the divine oracle engraved upon them. So basically, the important part of the revelation of the stone tablets is the function that it brings to the structure of the kingdom, right? Attention has been frequently directed in recent years to the remarkable resemblance between God's covenant with Israel and the suzerainty type of international treaty found in the ancient Near East. Similarities have been discovered in the areas of this document. The ceremonies of the ratification, the Mosaic administration, and most basically, of course, the suzerain servant leadership itself. So, here we understand that Israel has a historical basis for their establishing of their laws, right? And so it is a historic fact that the Hittites and the Hittite Empire had a suzerain and vassal order of covenant, right? And so, right, with that being said, there's a few images that I found, and I hope they portray what I'm trying to explain, right? So, with the Torah, Elohim wants us to be unified, right? Be one as a people, right? We're holy as a nation, right? We're here to serve our King and honor Him. And Yeshua taught us that not only that, but our King is willing to serve us as long as we hold ourselves true to His covenant. Now, a little more background into suzerain and vassal treaty. It says, a treaty between two unequal parties. The most powerful party is the suzerain, obviously, Elohim, God, Yod-Heh-Vav, Adonai, and the less powerful is the vassal, whether it be Israel, David, and Yeshua, right? And it's interesting because the language, right, the way that they used to manage themselves in the ancient Near East is very interesting because it shows a lot of words that are used in the Bible in the context of a covenant. And it says some parties are referred to as fathers, son, lord, and servant, or king and vassal. Lesser parties must show submission to the suzerain, right? So they're supposed to show service to the God or the king, right? A covenant regulation between a great king and one of his subject kings. The great king claimed absolute right of sovereignty and demanded total loyalty and service. The vassal must love his suzerain and pledge protection of the subject's realm and dynasty, and it was conditional on the vassal's faithfulness and loyalty to the suzerain, right? So the protection that the suzerain will give to his vassal is strictly and conditionally based on the faithfulness of the vassal during his service, right? So the vassal, on the other hand, pledge absolute loyalty to his suzerain, and whatever service this suzerain demands, and exclusive reliance on the suzerain's protection, participants call each other lord or servant, or father and son, right? So it's very interesting that this is a context that is brought in biblical, right? Yeshua calls Elohim father, and Elohim calls Yeshua son, right? And usually is interpreted as, beautiful father and son, but we understand that now is used in a legal aspect, right? Yeshua held himself to the covenant, to Elohim's word, and he represented it and embodied it. How did he do that? By applying himself to the Father's word and living according to it and teaching Elohim's children and his brethren the correct way to follow the Torah. And in that case, as Yeshua was baptized and he was immersed and he came out of the waters, Elohim said, "You are my son." And they became a covenant between Yeshua and Elohim because Yeshua fulfilled prophecy and held himself accordingly to what the Father expected from him. Okay? And so, where do I want to go with this? We're called to honor Elohim in everything we do, right? And so, in this Torah portion, we also see the following in chapters, if I'm not mistaken, chapter 6 or 5. Let's see. And it says, the 10 words, right? And this is how it starts. Moses called to all Israel and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the ordinances that I'm speaking in your hearing today. Learn them and make sure you do them. Adonai our God cut a covenant with us in Horeb, not with our fathers has Adonai cut this covenant, but with us, all of us are alive here today. Adonai spoke with you face to face on the mountain from the midst of the fire. I was standing between Adonai and you at the time to tell you that the words of Adonai, because you were afraid because of the fire and did not go up to the mountain. And Adonai said, Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt from house of bondage. You shall not have other gods beside me. Do not make yourself engrave images. No image of what is in heaven, above, on the earth, or beneath the waters. Do not bow down to them or worship them. For I, Adonai, your God, I am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to the 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments, my mitzvot. You must not take my name in vain, because Adonai your God is a just God, and I will not leave unpunished anyone to take his name in vain. Observe Yom Shabbat to keep it holy, as Adonai your God commanded you. 6 days you are to labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat to Adonai your God, and in it you're not to work. Not your son, not your daughter, not your slave, your maid, your ox or donkey, or any of your livestock, or outside or within your gates, so that your slave and your maid may rest as you do. You must remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and Adonai your God brought you out of the land with a mighty hand and outstretched arm. Therefore Adonai your God command you to keep Yom Shabbat. Honor your father and your mother, just as Adonai your God commanded you, so that you and your days may be long, and it may go well with you in the land of Adonai has given you. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness against your neighbor, do not covet your neighbor's wife, nor desire your neighbor's house, his field, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. These words Adonai spoke to all your assembly on the mountain from the midst of the fire, the cloud, and the fog, with a great voice. He added no more. He wrote them on 2 tablets of stone and gave them to me. So, here Adonai is, and Moses, on behalf of Adonai, is reinstating the covenant with Israel and reminding them the order that he wants established in his kingdom. Now, we're going to close with this. Now, remember, Mark 12, verse 28 to 30 or 34. And it says, this is Yeshua. It says, one of the Torah scholars came and heard them debating, and seeing that Yeshua had answered them well, he asked them, which is first of all? Which of the commandments is first of all? And look at what Yeshua answers. He says, the first is Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. And the second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And there is no other commandment greater than this. And the teacher said, well said. The Torah scholar said to him, you have spoken the truth, that he is Echad, and besides him there is no other. And to love him with all your heart, with all your understanding, and with all your strength, and to love the neighbor as oneself, is much more than all burnt offerings and sacrifices. When Yeshua saw that he had answered wisely, he said to him, you are not far from the kingdom of God. And no one dare any longer question him. So, with the little information I'm giving you today, the Torah on stone tablets that was given on Mount Sinai and that was reiterated to this young generation right now demonstrate that Elohim is our suzerain legally. He's our king. He's the creator. Yeshua is vassal. He is our king, our future king, and he is the prince of the suzerain. Suzerain, vassal, and we are the vassals as well. We honor our king, we honor our Elohim through Yeshua. Yeshua said, don't pray to me, pray to the Father in my name, because he is our mediator. He's our vassal. He was one found worthy to intercede for us. And Yeshua told us the most important commandment. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear Israel, Elohim is one. There's no other God beside him. And he said the second commandment was love your neighbor as yourself. And it's believed that the 10 commandments are structured that 1 through 4 is how we express our love to Elohim, and 5 through 10 is our way to express our love to our neighbors. So when Yeshua says this, he says that the greatest commandment is Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Hear Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart and soul, and with all your mind, with all your strength. And the second is you shall love your neighbor as yourself. He's saying that as vassals to our suzerain, we're to follow the commandments, and we will love God and love our neighbors by doing this. So please, my young people, obey Elohim, obey his commandments, stay true to his legal document. These laws established in the ancient Near East say that the laws cannot be eliminated unless the king that established them dies. And last time I checked, Yod He Vav He has not died. He lives. And his Messiah, Yeshua, has resurrected. And his covenant is still valid. So please, let's honor Elohim. Let's stay true to his path. And he will honor us in everything we do. So please, honor our God and our King. Thank you for watching. Have a great week. Shavua Tov. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.